Thought this A-B set was a little more difficult, and Fernando agreed. Passage A and B both discussing whether or not judges really have to be candid, whether or not they have to be honest in making their decisions or in justifying their decisions. Passage A makes a moral argument, right? I mean, there's some people that say that you don't really have to, in the first paragraph, you don't really have to be perfectly candid because you've got all these institutional considerations to balance, and a rigid adherence to a norm of honesty or sincerity is naive. And then we offer two possible defenses for the principle of sincerity. The problem with the prudential defense, and that's the idea that being honest will produce the most wise outcome, the most prudential outcome. But the problem with that is that it fails to acknowledge the normative force behind the idea. It fails to acknowledge the moral argument. In our ordinary moral thinking, I'm in line 25, duties of truth-telling aren't justified just because they produce good outcomes. It's not just about whatever outcome is best. It's because it is a moral duty. So the second way to defend the principle is the more important to this first author by appealing to moral principles. It's not necessarily what's wise or prudent. It is about what is right. The second author takes less of a hard line. She generally agrees that judges ought to be honest, but do these points, I'm in line 51, demonstrate that candor or honesty is an unshakable obligation? Probably not. All right, let's answer questions. Both passages seek an answer to which one of the following questions. Do judges have to be honest? B, must judges believe what they say in their opinions? 15, both passages allude to the possibility that a lack of judicial candor might affect which one of the following? I'll point you to line 20, that prudential argument shows that judicial candor strengthens institutional legitimacy, so a lack of candor would threaten institutional legitimacy. In line 56, any cost-benefit analysis must take into account the large institutional losses that would result from a lack of trust. A lack of candor results in an institutional loss of authority. B, the institutional strength of the courts. Both of them talk about that. Question 6, what would they disagree about? Well, the whole thing, they basically agree that judges should be candid. Their only real point of disagreement is that A is making that moral argument that B never makes. So A says we do have this unshakable duty, not just when it produces good outcomes, just all the time. And B says that those duty-based arguments probably don't produce demonstrate that candor is an unshakable obligation. So answer choice C, the judicial duty to be candid is justified regardless of whether it produces good outcomes. Passage A says, yes, it's not justified just when it produces good outcomes in line 25. B says, no, there's not an unshakable obligation, or probably not. B just doesn't get into any moral dimension. For 17, a principle that underlies the argument in A but not in B. Oh, come on, the moral dimension, right? I mean, nowhere present in passage B, and the crux of the argument in passage A, answer choice B, moral consideration should be given significant weight. Yeah. 18, each author implies that a lack of candor. I struggled with D for a while because, obviously it's present in passage B. A lack of candor could conceivably have positive benefits. Do these points, and we go back to that same, it's like everything about these questions is pointing us to the same place in the passages. A makes the moral argument that we have to. B says we probably should, but we don't have to. And there's your answer choice D as far as passage B, right? Is there an unshakable obligation? Probably not. Probably are some circumstances in which candor is not necessary. In passage A, we do not have an author arguing that there are such circumstances. We do, however, have a passage where an author says that there could conceivably be such circumstances. I'm in the first paragraph. The need for honesty ignores the myriad institutional considerations that judges must continuously balance. So there is conceivably a situation in which you'd have some benefit to the institution by not being hidebound for honesty. And there's your support for answer choice D from passage A. For 19, something that's mentioned in B but not in A, I'll point you to line 45. Candor is an essential prerequisite of all other restraints on abuse of judicial power. Answer choice E, restraints on judicial abuse of power. That's in passage B. It's nowhere in passage A. Question 20, what are the authors going to disagree about? Whether or not judicial candor is an absolute moral burden, right? I mean, it's the same question as 17. It's the same question as 16. Did I call it 6 earlier? I feel like I did. They disagree about whether or not candor is an absolute moral burden. Answer choice E, it is correct to view judicial candor as an obligation that can be overruled. No, passage A says no, it's not correct. It cannot be overruled. It is a positive moral duty. Passage B, is there an unshakable obligation? Probably not. It probably can be overruled. Finally, 21, analogous to the claim regarding judicial candor in the second sentence, second paragraph, second sentence, second paragraph, all the way down in line like 43, candor is an essential prerequisite of all other restraints. So on an analogy to that, some other situation in which there is a component that is necessary for all other arguments or all other avenues of possibility, in the same way that candor is the necessary prerequisite for all other restraints. In answer choice C, the data presented must meet conditions such as relevance and sufficiency. There are other conditions, but a presumption of all such conditions is that the data itself is accurate. We have this linchpin. Accuracy of the data is a prerequisite for all other considerations about the data, in the same way that judicial candor is a prerequisite for all other restraints on judicial power. And that is this third unpleasant A-B passage set. So here's the deal with these free videos. They're intended to serve a very narrow purpose. For those times when you're wondering, why is that the right answer? You can just come here for a complete library and find out why it was the right answer. And I hope that you'll find that it was very instructive. Of course, the other part of the deal is that since LSAC publishes all of their tests along with test keys, that means that there's no barrier to entry for test prep. And you can hear the air quotes, I hope. Anybody can, and lots of people have, set up shop and call themselves test prep companies, and they've got the questions, they've got the answer keys, and they just try to explain to you why the right answer is right. And then they charge you money for it? That is wrong. I want to put a stop to it. I want to sweep the legs right out from under them. It is bad for you. It's bad for me too. So if you want to know what the right answer is and why the right answer is right, I want you to be able to come here and find it out for free without paying anybody for it. That's very different from what I do in the paid course. What I think has value about what I do is that I can tell you ahead of time what every question wants from you, what to expect from the right answer, how to formulate a right answer, and then how you can expect wrong answers to sound, so that you know before you ever open up a test book exactly what to expect. And all the practice videos that are part of the paid course are just me putting that theory into practice. It's just the rubber meeting the road. In other words, I'm going to show you, based on what we've done before, how we're going to react when it comes up next time. And that bit, knowing what to do the next time you see something, that I think is worth paying for. And if you agree, I'd love to have you in the course. And if not, that's fine too. Don't pay anybody to explain why right answers are right. Just watch these for free. Enjoy.